They owned a cabin in the woods near the scenic waterfront. The family would go fishing and swimming and play games for 2 whole weeks. Mona even learned her lobstering skills from a local boy whose family had a boat and a small business nearby. By the time she graduated from high school, Mona was already ready to set up her shop in Bar Harbor. Mona's uncle Cecil still owned the cabin to this day. Mona's father had sold it to his younger brother after suffering a stroke. Traveling to Salmon Cove just wasn't as easy as it had been for the family, so they were happy to get rid of it. Mona hadn't been back since. Mona had recently heard through relatives that her Uncle Cecil was currently visiting an old army buddy in Arizona, and so the place was just sitting there empty. She emailed Cecil, and he quickly wrote back and told her that he would be happy to offer his cabin to Mona and her friends for a few days. Hayley honestly loved the idea of not having to split a hotel room. That would leave an ample amount of spending money for decadent seafood banquets and plenty of strong cocktails at the local watering hole. Liddy wasn't sold on the idea of a weekend in the boonies, and even tried to bow out of the trip altogether at one point, but then circumstances changed. She split up with her boyfriend, Sonny Lipton, a local attorney. Or they were just taking a break. That actually was the official story from Liddy, but according to Sonny, it was definitely over. He was done. And Liddy had yet to accept that cold, hard fact. But suddenly the idea of getting out of town had much more appeal to her, and she jumped on board at the last minute, insisting on driving them all to Salmon Cove in her new Mercedes that she had recently purchased in Bangor, which many in town believed was her way of trying to cheer herself up. Hayley had pulled Mona aside before they left and made her promise not to mention the breakup during their vacation. And Mona, who loved toying with and relentlessly teasing Liddy, begrudgingly agreed. That lasted about 20 minutes into the trip. "What you need, Liddy, is to find a new boyfriend so he can help you get that big old stick out of your butt," Mona said from the back seat. "I don't need a new boyfriend because Sonny and I have not broken up. Like I've said over and over again, we're just taking a break." "You can say it until you're blue in the face, but nobody's going to believe you," Mona said, popping the remainder of the candy bar in her mouth and then scrunching the wrapper into her fist before stuffing it in the seat pocket in front of her. "Why do you think he dumped you? Was it the age difference?" Hayley wanted to fling open the car door and jump out. Liddy cringed. "No, Mona, age had nothing to do with our decision to take a break." "Come on, it's like Maggie Smith dating the kid who played Harry Potter," Mona howled. Liddy gripped the wheel, her knuckles white, gritting her teeth, ready to burst a blood vessel. "Can we please change the subject?" Hayley begged. Mona shrugged and wiped the chocolate off her face with the arm of her sweatshirt. "Go ahead and eat all the snacks you smuggled into my car, Mona. I have no problem with that." "Seriously? Okay, what suddenly changed your mind?" Mona asked, curious. "I'm hoping even you have enough good manners not to talk with your mouth full," Liddy sniffed. "Don't bet on it," Hayley said, turning to see Mona tearing open a package of beef jerky. Luckily, by the time they reached Machias on Coastal Route 1, Mona had passed out and was snoring loud enough that Liddy felt the need to crank up the volume on her radio and blast 90s classics the rest of the way to Calais. Hayley and Liddy bopped up and down in their seats, singing along to their favorite Spice Girls song, crooning to their imaginary boyfriends to just tell them what they want, what they really, really want. The cabin was just 15 minutes outside of Calais, and when they reached the town, they had to wake Mona up from her peaceful slumber to guide them the rest of the way. Mona was grumpy and groggy, but she managed to get them there with the help of Liddy's Waze app on her phone, and when they finally pulled up to the cabin that was at the end of a gravel road and tucked into a secluded wooded area, Hayley's and Liddy's mouths dropped open in shock. It was a dump. The whole structure tilted to one side as if it was ready to collapse. A tarp had been hastily thrown over the entire roof, undoubtedly to cover up some holes where rainfall or snow might leak inside. There were empty beer cans littering the property, a rusted-out Volkswagen bus with no tires in the back, a pitiful pile of wood stacked up against the side of a wall.